Huzzah!
Okay, so if you for those who don't know this, I'm talking to my brother. We both grew up in the IBLP, which if you're not familiar with the IBLP, uh it's it was most popular from the Duggars. Uh on the They had various TLC channel TV shows called like 19 and counting and stuff. And they also had some scandals with the oldest son. But they did it in like the late mid to late 90s through the 2000s, and we were in the IBLP for the from the 80s to the late 90s. So we kind of didn't overlap with them, weren't aware of them as we were in the IBLP.
Right.
Um, but one thing we did is they had a homeschool curriculum, and our parents wanted us to be righteous young men, and so they homeschooled us, and they used this curriculum as part of our homeschooling.
Right.
And
And we also attended the what is it? The basic life principle conferences.
yeah, they had seminars that were like a week long each, and we were part of that. We went there. That was probably their main like source of getting new people was those conferences, I would
And
say.
money. Those things weren't cheap.
Well, kind of they were. I mean, you paid once, and then you could go for free after that forever.
Right. But uh they had I mean, they had a pretty good merch model where they like you go for free, but then the real ones will want to get those big leather bound books.
Right? Yeah. No, the books they definitely had overpriced books. That's for sure. Um. Anyway, so I found this PDF online of their um their homeschool curriculum, and since my brother and I had both just gone through that as kids, thought we it might be interesting to go over it now.
Oh
And
yeah. I mean, if nothing else, it'll be good for my personal uh therapy.
yeah, yeah, that can definitely the IBLP getting out of it can definitely require some therapy. There's a friend of ours who has a YouTube channel that was also in the IBLP, and it was that family you mentioned, the oldest daughter.
Yeah, the Umbrella Rebellion.
Yep, Umbrella Rebellion. They
Yeah, I've watched most of their stuff. They're pretty good.
Yeah. And yeah, so like she got into it way more than you or I ever did. Like she went to their headquarters and stuff and was like really in it. But and we were our parents were never
I mean,
as dogmatic about it. Have Did you know why we stopped associating with that family?
no.
Oh, okay. I didn't know either. That we just stopped associating with them and didn't
Right.
really know why. Mom told me this a few years ago. What happened? I don't remember what how the subject came up, but she was like, "Oh, you didn't know this? This is why." What happened is I went to private school when I started going to that Christian school when I was in the fourth grade, and you started going I think a year after I did. But the
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. The one at the church.
Yeah, when I started going there, um, they came to our parents and said, "You're sending your kids to the world. We can't associate with you anymore."
That's incredible.
I know, right?
Like we were going to an extremely crazy Christian school at a Christian church in Oklahoma, and
At
that was the world.
It wasn't just at a Christian church. It was at the Christian church that both families attended.
Right.
Like, so like it's just bizarre to me that they would make that stand. But that's what Mom said at least a few years ago to me.
Oh, I don't doubt it.
I don't doubt it either. It sounds exactly like what the IBLP would do. But yeah, man, I when I heard that I was just like, wow,
Yeah,
that's
I never knew why we stopped being friends.
But yeah, it's just to give those of you who are listening some perspective. This family and ours, they had a daughter that was my age and a son that was my brother's age. Um, and when we were growing up until the time when I went to this private school, we would uh, every other week the parents would alternate, and we'd either go over to their house and their parents would watch us, or they would come over to our house and our parents would watch them, so that the all other parents could have a date night of sorts. I mean, we were really close to this family, and it just like,
Yeah, in a very real way. They were my mom and dad were like, "This is your assigned best friend."
yeah, well, yeah, and not only that, like they were, um, my our parents when we were young had a plan for if they were to like die, both of them die, and like what it was supposed to go to, we were supposed to go to our grandmother and papa, and then
Right. Yeah, I remember that.
but this family was in that line of succession at some point. I forget where, but I think they were after grandmother
Right.
and papa. I mean, it's like, so I mean, we were like, this was the family we were close to, and they just like, we, as soon as I was not going to this homeschool thing, they were just like, we're not associating with you anymore. And
Well, I know uh the reason they quit East they're not the that church that they sold, or not they sold, that church that they both attended. The reason they quit that was because that church started doing stuff outside the hymnal.
oh, really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. Yeah,
Wow.
you know, like they were like, "Our God is an awesome God. What the heck? Not on my watch."
Huh. Yeah. I mean, they
Which
they
mean, not that there was a great song anyway, but like,
yeah, no, it's definitely, one of the things about the IBLP is definitely uh the the focus on, no, not focus, but one of the things is they talk a lot about what music is good to have and what music is evil.
right,
And
right. Certain like a certain type of rhythm will summon the demons or something.
yeah, yeah,
Like,
just
not kidding. That's actually what it says.
yeah. Oh no, yeah, you're right. I don't remember they go over that in this book, but I know I've read it recently as I've been like kind of re-examining the IBLP stuff. And I think I don't remember if it's this one or on their website somewhere. By the way, speaking of their website, did you know they have all the whole seminar available for streaming for free, along with the book you're supposed to fill out?
Wow.
Yeah, it'd be. I've thought about, hey, maybe it'd be fun to go over that and kind of review that, but I counted it up and it's like 25 hours long, all told. And and I think I would need someone who has a broader perspective, because I don't think I could pick out all the bad stuff in it.
Oh,
But
I couldn't. It would, and I also like, man, I'd have to be careful how I do that because that shit was dangerous for me. Like, I am still deprogramming myself from some of the toxic ways of thinking.
hmm, yeah, I don't know. I'm not.
Like, I'm not saying I couldn't. I'm just saying like, hey, that might be a good thing, but I would have to do it with care for my own mental health.
Yeah, yeah. It's
Although it might be good to like deconstruct it and see like, oh, that's where like I keep often coming back as I'm going through therapy and finding like, oh, that's where that thing comes from. No wonder it sucks.
yeah. I don't know. For me, it's hard for me to separate a lot of that from baseline Christianity, because to me that was what Christianity was,
Right, right. I didn't
and
know there was a difference for a long time.
yeah, and so like I'm not sure I could I'm not sure I could pick that out and say, oh, this is uniquely bad because it's IBLP versus it's just bad, not because it's Christianity, but it's it's something you would get in regular Christianity as well. So I think I could probably do a good job of picking out a lot of the bad stuff. I just don't know that I could identify what's mainstream Christianity versus IBLP. So
I give it
anyway,
a shot. I think I went more into Christian studies than you did for a while.
yeah, I'll be honest. I I never I never got into the Christian stuff that much. I don't know why, but I feel like I feel like I was never that deep into it. Um, I mean, I believed, but I believed the basics of Christianity. We've never really talked about this,
Uh-uh.
but I was so by the time we moved out of the city into the country, by the time we did that, I had pretty much decided that God was pretty much a deist God. Um, I felt like He did send Jesus and so He wasn't completely deist, but He was pretty much a deist God. He pretty much started the universe and then just and put it on autopilot and just let it go.
Okay.
So like the whole all these Christian studies that it just like it didn't seem make sense to me to even study those things because that's not what God was about.
Right.
So I never got into that much.
Man, it took me way too long to figure out that it was a crock of shit.
Yeah. Um we've never talked about this. Maybe we won't even get into ATI today. Maybe we'll just talk about our shared experience. Maybe we'll get into the ATI some other time. But so what did wake you up?
Um, the divorce.
Oh, okay. That
Like the I was a guy, like I was on the list of guys that my pastor would be like, "Hey man, are you got anything ready for the congregation?" Like if things came up, like I wasn't just like a member of the church. Like I was a team player. Like I was going to go career. And when my ex-wife uh cheated on me and then lied about it to the church to uh try and, make them all mad at me, it worked. Like only one kid from that entire church checked on me.
huh.
And and like I kept and that's even including like when I kept trying to show up and be a member and like I was a good and faithful person as much as I can be. I mean, we all have human failings, and like no one can say I was a perfect partner, but I tried. And the church had no idea how to handle someone failing. And between that and having absolutely no evidence of miracles in anybody I know, uh, it became very conclusive that this religion has nothing to it.
Huh. Cuz I remember you asking the question before you got divorced. I remember sitting around a dinner table and you talked about miracles in that conversation. I remember that sticks out in my memory. You were talking about how there's no miracles today that are verified or anything like or something to that effect.
Yeah.
Um so, for me, uh it was when I was living in Seattle and uh it was very quick for me to deconvert. Now, deconstruction is a little bit different.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But my deconversion, there was no soul searching or anything. A guy said, described the difference between the scientific method and the pseudoscientific method. And I could see that Christianity used the pseudoscientific method, which is, you start from your conclusion and you find an explanation that reaches your conclusion that explains.
Right.
And and I was like, oh, that's what Christianity does. And bam, every and no, and I said, I mean, I was mostly a deist at that point. I didn't really believe God intervened with the world. um, except at very specific points, but it wasn't a common occurrence. So like it wasn't I didn't lose that much. Um, but yeah, I heard that, and within, I mean, practically immediately, every belief I had in Christianity just disappeared. And it wasn't a like big deal to me because I wasn't upset about it. I was just like, it was more like, oh, well, that's kind of a neat thing that happened, and then I just went on about my day and
Man.
never. Yeah, no, I'll tell you I've watched other people's. Are you familiar with Pelagia
Uh,
or
say it
genetically
again.
Pelagia? It's a YouTube channel, an atheist YouTube channel out there. Who?
No.
Oh, okay. You should look him up. He grew up Mennonite, and had he was actually he knows George Lucas. He worked for Lucasfilm on the prequel trilogy as a visual effects artist.
Oh, you meant that as a good thing. No, the visuals were good. The visuals were good.
um, but and I think he was involved, especially in like maybe the Clone Wars series. He talks about the Clone Wars series, I think, sometimes. But anyway, so but he talks about his deconversion story, and it was like, he was wanting to write this graphic novel about uh set in, the dinosaur era, and he wanted to have some token scientific references into it, and he started looking into the evidence for evolution, and it just like shook him to his very core, and he had a life crisis over it. And I've heard other deconversion stories, and everyone I hear is like these people had these existential crises.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah, I sure did.
oh man. Let me check my channel because it still says waiting for me. Let me make sure I'm live. Okay, looks like it's live. Let me make sure. Okay, yeah, we're live. Since I'm in here, I'll just send you the link so you can monitor the chat, and if anyone shows up and you're interested.
I probably don't have the I don't have the screen capacity to have that much open.
Okay.
I might need to get another monitor if this becomes a thing.
Well, I mean, I would say just pop out the chat and have that somewhere.
Right, but I've got my game up, and I've got our stream up, and I've got my stream up, and I only have the two monitors.
Sure. Okay. No biggie.
But hey,
Anyway.
if you want to help me set up a third monitor,
Anyway, so what was I saying? Oh, so all these guys who have these deconversion stories that I'm watching, they're like all having these existential crises, and like for me, it was like almost a non-event. It was just like intellectually an interesting thing that happened. So
man, I wish I'd been that way.
yeah, no. So when I found out about this, I was like, well, what's going on here? Why is my deconversion story so different? Um, and so I started thinking about it and looking into it and saying, hey, why is mine different? Why didn't I have this existential crisis? Why was I able to let go of it so easily? And I've come to some conclusions about
What
that.
what you got?
Well, let me actually, since we're talking about that, let me pull up. I think I have it. I I wrote out. I've written it out on a Google Doc just so I can, if someone asks, I can just hand them that. Um,
Nice.
and just say this is what I've discovered. Um, when I've examined it, and it does have some. So I think my deconversion, or not my deconversion, but my deviation from normal Christianity happened when I was like 8, around that age. Like,
Wow.
yeah, cuz like I remember going to church and being told these stories about these miraculous things happening. And uh specifically the one that sticks out of my mind is I was being told at sitting up in the balcony looking down at the pulpit. I remember watching the hearing the pastor, or I think wasn't a pastor. I think we were doing like a seminar and it was a guest speaker. But I remember them talking about NDEs and describing NDEs, and I'm like, well, that just sounds like something that would happen when the brain starts dying. How do you know that isn't what was happening? Um, and and honestly, to me, I thought that just made sense, so much sense to me. I just thought the guy was telling the story, knowing that it's probably just something happening in the brain. And now as an adult, and when people bring up NDEs as like proof that there's something supernatural to our existence, I think he now that I'm an adult and I say, okay, I know that other people don't think the same things as me. I'm now more aware, and I think maybe that speaker probably was all those years ago actually being serious and thought he was giving actual proof.
Yeah,
But
there's lots of people who do that.
I just assumed, oh, he's just saying that for reasons, and he knows it's not real, just like I know it's not real. But that's like the oldest thing I remember thinking, oh, that sounds made up to me. But there's as I've gone through it, and the more I think about come across things, I'm like, oh yeah, I remember hearing that as a kid, and I didn't believe that then either. But but one thing is like I never ever had in my entire life. I never had an experience that I thought was spiritual. When I had it, like I'm sure there's things you thought were spiritual experiences you were having at the time, and now you go back and think about it, and you're like, well, obviously that wasn't a spiritual experience. That was something else, right?
Um, Kinda. I do have a instance where it was after one of those terrible fights me and dad used to have, and I ran out to the barn and I was just like on my knees bawling because I didn't understand why the world was so mean. And I heard a voice say, "Make peace."
Uh huh.
And that was my only uh like I held on to that for decades as like that was my miracle. That was the thing I saw when it was almost certainly just a hallucination.
Sure. So like I never had anything like that. But even like sitting in church and people saying, I feel the spirit of God is here. Like I never even had that. Like
I
none of
mean, like people say that, but I've also heard people say that about Beatles concerts.
right. No, that's what I'm saying. Like when when I was younger, I I assumed they were just saying that. As I got older, I like in high school, I started switching from think people are just saying that to these people are having these experiences. Why isn't God touching me with his presence? Why am
Right.
I why am I only feeling emotional manipulation by the sermon or the worship music or whatever? Why am I only feeling this? Why am I not feeling the actual Holy Spirit? What's wrong with me? Um and now I realize they were having the same experience. I was feeling emotional manipulation. I could tell. Oh yeah, you obviously if you put people through some uplifting music, preach a powerful sermon, and then have some like calming music, you're going to have emotions. Obviously, that's going to be what happens, and I could
Yeah,
see
the
that.
the modern church manufactured, emotional experience.
Yeah, and but I could see that as emotional manipulation. And so, like, what they were feeling and identifying as the presence of the Holy Spirit, I was identifying as emotional manipulation from the beginning. And I realize that now. But at the time, I didn't realize it. I was like, okay, I know I'm being emotionally manipulated, but they're actually having the Spirit touch them. And I wasn't able to say, oh, no, they're feeling. the same thing I am, and they're just misattributing it. Um,
Right. Well, you got one level more comprehensive than I sure ever did.
so so there's that, and like, and the same thing like at church camp. You spend a week beating kids down, exhausting them. Of course, by the end of the week, emotions are ragged, and people are in this state where they're going to be more receptive to whatever. And
Right.
I could
Every
see
time.
and I could see that, and I could see, oh, this is what's happening. So, yeah. Anyway,
Right.
uh,
I remember doing that, and I remember even as a young adult thinking that like how useful that is because it breaks through all the programming of the world and gets down to the truth for kids.
see, I had the opposite reaction. I was like, oh, well, you're just getting. I mean, they're going to just go back to their regular lives next week. So why? This is kind of pointless, isn't it? It's kind of a exercise in futility. It was my take on it. It was fun going to camp, getting to spend a week with less adult supervision than I had at home, but that was about it. Um, so so anyway, that's kind of so I the more I think about it, the more I'm like, oh, I was I was never really truly Christian. I don't think. Like, and people will say you were never Christian. I was like, okay, doesn't make it doesn't make me that's not convincing me to be a Christian now. It just means that like whatever is going on in my brain wasn't as susceptible as other people. That you still have to
Right.
prove to me now that Christianity is real. I'm not you I mean like you say Buddhism isn't real, but you never tried it. You never were truly a Buddhist or a Hindu. So how do you know that's not true?
Right. But now there is like the once the shade is lifted, I can look back at so much of the logical fallacies and the arguments and the proofs that like there is just no way that any of that is real.
Um, I mean, I don't know where you stand on it now. I say I'm an atheist, and what I mean by that is I do not hold a belief that any God is real, but it doesn't mean that I believe no God is real.
I'm
It
I'm willing to be convinced.
yeah, okay,
Like but like and again, it's hard for me to separate the actions of the cult is just how I call them from the actions of good believers. But like oh, did you know about okay, I'm gonna tell a little story so I can get to a uh, a truth.
sure,
So as a young adult, I got really back into church and was going to an interdisciplinary apologetics Bible study. So we had a Catholic and a Presbyterian, some Baptists and some Lutherans, and just the the big groups were majorly represented, and we'd agree that like Jesus Christ is Lord, and he did come to save us, and the Bible is true, and we want to work out what everything else is. So
uh,
it was kind of a deep thinking group,
sure,
and one of the guys, a geologist who's a Christian, wanted to present on uh, old Earth versus young Earth.
right. Oh, I think you've told me this, but go ahead.
And I was like, I showed up, like I prepped. I went back to mom and dad's house. I went to their library, and I gathered up books. I did as much stuff as I would do to write a college paper. And I thought I was just like I was going to eat this guy alive. And he he tore through everything I had without even realizing he was facing an argument. Because and then he like let me know that like, oh yeah, this book publishing company, what they do is they will find graduates who aren't doing well with their degree and pay them like 10 grand to sign up as a ghostwriter on this book so that they can say that like this type of young earth tech uh, ideology is espoused by this person with a PhD, or this type of Christian psychology is backed up by this person with a PhD.
Really?
Yeah. And that was another one of the proofs that I was like, yeah, this is total hogwash. Because if God was real, you wouldn't have to manufacture stuff to make his stuff more convincing.
Right. Yeah, I mean for sure. Huh.
And it also like, man, that was a mind blowing experience to be like, oh shoot. So the stuff I learned in school, which like, I was you like me, you were taught in school that the earth is 5,500 and some years old.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact numbers, but yeah, something like that.
Yeah. And so I'm like, I'm going back to formula to my education, being like, okay, what's true and what's not true.
Huh. So, did you have you ever gone back and looked at the books that were used in our education now and just seen what they're like?
Only the most cursory glance.
Yeah, me same here. Well, I can't even find the books anymore. I found one world history book at mom and dad's house that was used in our education. I can't. I'd be. I really wish I could find the biology book and just see and read through that and just see.
Oh my gosh, yeah,
I
that'd be
know,
good.
I know, right? But the world history is bad enough. I mean, their world history starts with the Garden of Eden. It's like, yeah, that's not. It's such a frustrating thing to have been taught that, and now I know even like I get that you have these beliefs and you can think these things, but you're crippling your children by teaching them that if they have to function in a world where that's not what people believe.
Oh, dude, I'm still finding gaps in my education.
Oh yeah, for sure. Um and that's the more frustrating part of it is that bit to me is you know, I wonder if there's things I would have changed if done differently if I had different things.
Oh
Uh
man, I mean,
we've got someone in
you,
the chat that's asking if they can ask questions. So
sure, what's up? As far as I'm concerned.
yeah, but yeah, I don't know if you were listening to from the beginning, Mod. We were going to go over this book I found, but we we've got kind of on a different subject, and so we're just kind of talking about our experiences.
Um, is there a question?
She hasn't asked anything yet.
Oh, okay. So like, so there was those books that were like that, and then like what's really been problematic for me is that like I have long considered myself a historian, but
Yes,
the number of times I've had to like, okay, that's not actually true. This is true, and rework because like the world history had such a huge slant, and the American history was pure propaganda.
for sure, for sure. Okay, here's the question. What is the worst memory you have that scared you and you will never forget? I'll go first. Um,
Okay.
I, I I don't really have any memories, uh, like of events that happened that I would say were worst. The there's something that does stick out for me that scared me as a kid that I don't think I'll ever forget. And it was a dream. I remember I was probably 4 or 5, and I dreamed that it was when we had the Volkswagen bus. It was that era. I don't know if you remember that. You might have been too young.
I do not. Not only was I probably pretty young, but I legit have diagnosed memory problems from that time, from the traumatic experiences.
Okay. Well, so do you remember the Toyota van?
Yeah, yeah. It had
Okay.
the windows that slid open instead of cracked open.
Yes. Okay. So before that, we had a Volkswagen, one of those Volkswagen buses that looked.
Oh, it had the brown interior.
Yeah, yeah, that one.
Okay.
So it
Yeah,
was.
it wasn't the cool bus. It was the more modernized one.
Yeah. So we had it was when we had that, and I remember dreaming that Satan was dressed as a mummy slash homeless guy sitting on a stop sign trying to snatch me out of the van. That's probably the most traumatic memory I have. As far as actual events that happened, I suppose there was this one time Dad beat me. I lied to him about something. I don't even remember what, and he beat me till I was on the floor and wouldn't stop. And I had bruises for like a week later.
Yeah.
Uh,
Man, that's tough.
yeah. Well, I mean, and I know your experience with our parents was much different because I was more able to conform to whatever they wanted than you were. So I'm sure you have more of those types of stories than I do. But yeah,
Well, I
thanks.
mean, it's weird knowing that like they are genuinely, I think, kind people, but uh like some of the punishments they gave me were just, I would never do that to any human, let alone my own child.
Right. No, I agree. It's they. I don't think they. I mean, I know Dad was angry when he did that.
Sure.
He was very angry for some reason, and he couldn't stop. But I also know that he thought he was doing the right thing, and uh, that's um, and so like I hear people saying I hate my parents for what they did to me. I don't hate them. I think they thought they were doing the best things for us, and
In my opinion, especially after hearing about those books and seeing how much research they did to try and make our lives like these incredible spiritual warriors, they were fooled into thinking that they were preparing us to be warriors in some sort of Christian apocalypse.
yeah, 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 exact for sure. Anyway, what was your most traumatic experience, if you feel like talking about that?
Um, well, uh, well, you don't actually know about this because I only recently told mom and dad about this. Um, but I had I had some early childhood abuse of a physical and sexual nature.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I I was probably in second or third grade before I realized that it wasn't just uh, most people didn't have a special friend, and then I just kept quiet about it forever.
Wow.
Um, so that's probably my worst.
Yeah.
Sorry, man.
No, no, that's fine. I'll be honest. Um, I kind of suspected maybe something that happened like that, but I didn't know for sure. And it's not something you want to ask someone about. It's something you want to
Right.
wait for them to talk about. So, yeah. And it was up until now suspicions, not confirmation. I
Right.
so wow. I'm so sorry about that.
I'm not happy about it, but you play the cards you're dealt.
Yeah. Yeah. Uh how are you recovering from that?
I mean, I'm in therapy twice a week right now, and the trying to deprogram a lot of the toxic beliefs I have. Like, I don't know that any of the adult relationships I've had, would have worked if I was less toxic. But I know they weren't, especially the early ones, were not helpful by being like, no, the Bible says we do it this way.
Sure. Okay, you got a compliment. Said they got that took balls to admit. So,
Oh,
yeah, that's so growing up how we did, you would expect to have your attitude about that stuff. I never did. I never like I remember mom telling me I don't remember if it was before we moved to the two story or when we were still living at the gray house. Um, but it was it was before I went to that Christian school, so I was younger than 10 when this happened. But my mom was like, they should make homosexuality illegal, or I think, and they, and I was
Oh my
like,
God, our experiences were so different.
well, you can't do that. You can't legislate morality. Um, and like to me, it was so clear. Like you the Jesus says, you know, if you think it in your mind, it's as if you had done it. No matter what laws
Right.
no matter what laws you make, they're still going to be thinking that. So
Yeah.
like if you're legislating it for moral reasons, that doesn't even make sense from a Christian standpoint. What you're not doing anything that's going to help them. So I was like, you can't legislate morality, and also, do you think you will be the one in power for the end till the end of time? I mean, the Bible says you won't. Whatever you can do to someone else when you're in power, they can do to you when they get into power.
Right.
So why are you doing that? Why are you opening up these doors for more and more things to happen? And as an 8 or 9 year old, I told that to our mom when she said that, and like anyway,
Oh, I
it's
bet she wasn't happy with that.
I don't remember. I don't remember any fallout from it. I just remember that conversation happening and that saying you can't legislate morality.
You tried reason and thought to oppose them. I just yelled and had emotions. I think your way
Yeah,
was
yeah. So, um, yeah, Maud. So like Jesus says, if you look at a woman with lust in your heart, it's as if you committed adultery. So I mean, that's a
I
thought.
mean, if you look in the Greek, it actually says you raped her.
Oh, okay. Well, that's even worse. But but we got someone, she's missing mod said, I don't know if thoughts are sin, and I'm just saying, Jesus said, if you think it, it's as if you did it. So
That's I mean, yeah, and that's what we were taught. That's what the literal translation of the Bible says.
yeah. And people can interpret that differently if they want. We were taught that's a sin. If you do those things, you are sinning.
Right.
Um, so, and I was like, the idea of legislating morality just never made sense to me. And like, I don't remember ever, like, even if it's not legislatable, I never really remember caring about other people being homosexual. It never, what they did in their own time just never bothered me. And I don't, so I was very much an atypical Christian, I think.
Right. Even when I was heavily involved in the church, when I was asked about it, I was like, the Bible says it's a sin. I don't know why, but like lying's a sin. Everybody lies, just
Yeah. I mean, a lot of Christians will say, well, everyone's a sinner, but like, and I mean, that's what I thought, but I just didn't care about it.
yeah, like I didn't like the idea of it, but I also saw that like that's not a big issue in the scripture. Why like I don't know why we're talking about it so much.
Yeah.
I think if Jesus of Nazareth showed up in America, he'd be a lot more upset about our financial system than our sexual immorality.
For sure. I mean, he was very much, against people being rich. Oh yeah. Well, Mod, if we do get into the IBLP stuff, you'll find some pretty wild stuff. They had uh, a lot of interesting rules regarding what women should wear and what haircuts they should have and how much
Oh
what
yeah.
kind of makeup they should have. I mean, it was very weird. I'll say it was very very weird. Um, this kind of haircut means you're a harlot, and this kind of haircut means you're not. And if you have this color hair, you should wear these clothes. And it's like looking back at it, it's like why would the why would that be part of your religion? I mean, what like there's nothing in the Bible about that at all. So I don't know.
There's a couple verses that Paul wrote about, but like it's a shame for a man to pray with his head uncovered.
Well, yeah, no, yeah, there's that, but um,
which is weird because I remember being like had my baseball cap yanked off of me when I was trying to pray in church, and someone quoted that to me, and then I looked at it and I'm like, but it says uncovered, and my head was covered. Why is this not better?
yeah, no, I mean there are some things where it talks about dress, but it never says what kind of hairstyle a woman should
No,
have.
no, no. That was just moralism put on it by Gothard, as far as I could tell.
Yeah. So Missing Mod says, I kind of agree with that covering the women. Think about it. What that's the weakness of most men, a beautiful lady. It's for protection, I think, and to keep the men from lusting.
Right, right.
Um,
But what Jesus said was when his disciples were like, "Hey, man, those girls are wearing those things. What should we do about it?" And Jesus was like, "Hey, man, have you tried taking your eye out?"
yeah, exactly. He said he did say it's on the men to deal with their lust and not on the women. But also and it is. The we may live in a society where for that men feel empowered to be gross towards women because of the way they dress, but that doesn't make it right.
No, no.
They
It's
should be men should be able to control themselves.
right. Um,
Uh, she says it's
Ricky Gervais has a good line on this. Is he's like, religion doesn't keep me from raping and killing people. I kill exactly as many people and rape exactly as many people as I want to. That number is zero.
right. Um, so Missing Mod says it says a woman in rebellion cuts her hair, right? I don't know if it says that or not, but I'm not even I'm not talking about like cutting your hair. It specifies like specific like
Yeah,
and they have pictures. If I bring it up, if we ever get to that, you'll see what I'm talking about. But it's there. It has like nine pictures of women with pretty standard late '80s, early '90s haircuts, and some of them are labeled as this woman has bad morals, and some of them are labeled as this woman has good morals. And it's like they're all like pretty conservative haircuts that you would see on 80s and 90s, and it's none of it's like super short hair. It's all no. I like the interaction, um, but this the thing we're talking about is I don't think is what you're thinking of because they're you would look at all these haircuts and be like, what's the problem with any of these haircuts? There's nothing in these haircuts.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like a lot of that the rules they came up with was just uh biblical justification for things that made them feel funny about people.
Um, I think I think that might be some of it. I think the things about what women should wear and what how they should have their haircut, do their hair. Um, I think that's because that's what Bill Gothard liked.
Right. Right. But he was a sick twisted man and he had funny feelings about, women having ideas and independence.
Yeah, yeah, for sure.
And then he had funny ideas about rock music, so he found rules about that. And he had funny ideas about dress code and found ideas about that.
Yeah,
Man, it's super weird that a dude who never had kids became such a huge authority for thousands of people on how to raise kids in a completely off the wall way.
yeah. No, it had to do with his. I think a lot had to do with his. If you look at the basic seminar and look at the stuff about how to like the stronghold stuff. Um,
Yeah,
whether it's right or wrong, and I think it's probably mostly wrong, but what no matter what, it is very compelling. It sounds right. And it sounds like, oh yeah, there's something here. And it that right there helps you buy into the rest of it.
right.
And so I mean that's just what it was about, I think.
I know people who feel like it was just an incredibly hostile way to control women.
Well, Mod, if you have strongholds, what I can tell you is don't go to the IBLP for getting rid of them. Even if their stronghold stuff, the stuff on strongholds is a good way of getting rid of strongholds, and I'm not convinced it is. But even if it is, the rest of the stuff with the IBLP is is not worth learning that little bit. So anyway, I've kind of run out of stuff to talk about. I think we've probably too far into it to actually do this thing. Maybe we'll do this next time.
All right.
But well, we can. um,
If we knew we were gonna have this conversation, we probably would have had some more interesting graphics.
yeah, probably. um, but yeah. The
How long have we been going for?
um, let's see. We've been almost an hour.
Oh, okay.
So hey, so let's talk about. I'd like to do this like on the regular with you. Um,
Okay.
what would work? Would you like to? Would you be interested in doing that?
Yeah. We need to find a time that works regularly. Um, Saturdays doesn't always work for me, but Sunday nights usually does.
Sunday nights? Okay.
Like Sunday around now?
Yeah, yeah, that sounds good. Maybe not this late. Maybe a little bit earlier. Would that work?
Sure, sure. I mean, like usually by Sunday, whether I'm doing anything, I'm home by 5 or 6 or whatever,
Okay.
and doing stuff for the next week.
Join the Matrix. um. Oh,
What's
missing.
that?
I'm looking at the chat. Missing Mod says that you're cool and thanks for sharing, and that I should join the Matrix. Except she said Phantom X12, which is the next one. I'm not. I'm Phantom X11, so that's the next Phantom X. Should join the
Oh, is
Matrix.
that your son?
I guess so.
That's why he's the 11th brother.
Yep. Yep. So, yeah, Sundays say maybe 6:37.
That works for me.
Okay, yeah, I think we can do that.
And then next week we will actually go over the first booklet.
Yeah, next week we'll actually go over this first book. Yep.
Cool. All right. Sounds good, man.
All right, thanks.
Yeah, no problem. Thank you.
You still there, Tim?